globally monetary reset has begun by the Stanley Druckenmiller. Okay, so what's going on is this? What is signal tell us now? Interesting. Wow. The quiet financial shift nobody noticed. There's a moment in history when the rule of the money changed. Not gradually, not quietly, but at once. Most people don't notice until it's already happened. The price at the grocery store started climbing. The saving account feels strangers lighter every year, and the wealth gap, the one they always assume eventually close, seems to widen overnight. Look around someone to blame. The real answer is hiding in the plan, buried in the policy, speech most people never read. We are living in one of those moments right now. It's what the Bill Financial Commentary willing to say plainly. The people who run the global monetary system are openly recorded telling us they intend restructures, not overhaul regulation here. The weak interest rate reconstruct entirely architectures how money flow across the planet. The U.S. national debt, bellowing toward 40 trillion. Gold is hovering at the near all-time high, while foreign central banks accumulate a press seen decades. Dollar shared global reserve has collapsed from 71% under the 58%, less than the generations. The government worldwide are quietly building the payment system designed to operate without a dollar. Isn't conspiracy, it's policy. So there's playbook, because the world has done this before. Last time we said it's magnitude 1944. The world emerges from the wreckages of World War II and set down small New Hampshire's hotel, redesigned the global financial order. The people who understood the new route come out meeting the Bretton Woods Agreement went on build generation wealth. The people who buy the global monetary system is changed didn't understand head-on the old assumptions, got quietly, systematically left behind. Bad luck, do the ignorance, and how the game had changed. The same dynamic is unfolding today. And I'm going to walk through the next, no theory, structures, regulars, and actually happening now. And more important is mean your money, whether you have 500 or 500,000. I'm going to explain how the monetary system and live inside actually work. Now, specific risk opportunities look like investor willing to think clearly instead of emotionally. It's no panic here. Panic is for people who don't understand the mechanism. But the time was now, and you will understand the greater micro-investor in history build a fortune. So shift because crowd, and the shift they don't ask happen me. The moment when loud signal in the room and the one dressed in the most boring clothes. So signal should have every serious person sitting up, and the languages, policy, address, delivery, and the rock economics Springer's newsletter. The single most powerful financial officials in the United States government. Vast majority of people who heard it, absolutely no idea, had just witnessed the U.S. Treasury Secretary. The U.S. Treasury Secretary stood before the international financial community, start with the full weight of his office behind him, the war in the middle, Bretton Woods, realignment and the war in the Bretton Woods. So that is precisely problem, because those 4 words spoken by a particular person in the particular, the Treasury Secretary Bretton Woods Morin position carry a weight, and the most financial commentaries have either failed, collapsed, chosen not to explain. So Treasury Secretary was describing was not a policy adjustment. He was not talking about weakening tariff or reshaping the trade. He was signal the fundamental architecture of the global monetary system. The invincible framework determine the value of a saving. The price, everything you buy, direction, every major investment, market on earth, deliberate, intentionally designed. Understand what this means. The man whose signature appear the U.S. dollar, the man who sit at the top of the American financial apparatus, and the man who negotiated with IMF, World Bank, and the Finance Ministry. Every signal economy and the man look at the color system said publicly need to fundamentally reset. Not a patch up, not a reform, a reset. It's not just talking about, it's actively engineering condition that happen through the dollars policy, through the trade architecture, through the banking deregulations, through the deliberate recalibrations, American role of the global financial order. Now is why it's signal more than almost anything else. You could pay attention right now. The last time the world went to the Bretton Woods moment, 1944. 44 nations gathered in a single hotel and ruled the New Hampshire and span 3 weeks rewrote rule of the global monetary. Every currency on earth become the anchor the U.S. dollar, and dollar was the anchor the gold. And the International Monetary Fund was born, and the World Bank was born, and the United States installed an ambitious center of the global financial universe. The people who understood those new rules positioned themselves. They build wealth and last generation. People who kept operating under the old assumptions had wrong asset, trust the wrong instrument, value, and recognized the game fundamentally change. So it ignored slowly, painfully, and the following decades, that is a historic precedent starting right now. So not some vacuum of economic cycle. Its correction, its structures, regime change. It's kind of happening perhaps twice a century, openly, telegraphically, by the people with the power. Execute, executive dollar, share the global global reserve already falling the net 71% to under 58%. Central bank worldwide are buying the gold at a price not seen modern financial history. In 1944, Bretton Woods Agreement explained alternative payment system is being constructed, specifically allowed around the dollar dependency. Architecture is already shifting beneath our feet. Signal has been given the only questions whether you heard. Most people through their entire life interact in the money every single day's earning, spending, saving, worrying about it without ever stopping to understand what is actually not not philosophically, not abstractly, but mechanically create, how it's controlled. So who benefit from the way the system is designed already? So who quietly pay the price? Ignorance is not an accident, it's complexity surrounding the money. Many were deliberate, cultivate because of the population and understand the mechanic cannot push back against, cannot protect itself. So benefit from the moment when. So before we talk about what is happening, how we got here because the reset engineering today did not emerge from nowhere. So consequently, a series of decisions, so on. So how we got because reset engineering today emerges from the nowhere. It is inevitable consequence. Serious decision matters over 80 years. Decisions celebrate the time nationalized necessary, the middle, now producing the prejudice, and the systems cannot no longer absorb it quietly. Cast your mind in 1944. The world had just survived the most destructive conflict in human history. The Europe is ruined and Asia is devastated, and the old financial order, the one being the colony trade relationship, compelling imperial currency, and has been shattered around everything else into the vacuum, and the 44 nations gathered at the resort of Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, and did something extraordinary, sat down, deliberate, designed a new global monetary system, scratches agreement, produced elegant and logical US dollar would become the world reserve currency, and account international trade benchmark against which is every other currency would be the major. The crucial dollar would be the anchored gold and the fixed and the per ounce. That time is gold fixed rate is per ounce $35. Every country had the dollars effect holding the crown of the American gold. The system is built in the discipline mechanism. The United States could not print the dollars freely because every dollar print was the promise, a promise backed by the physical metals sitting in the board and the constraint Gini system and the worked post-war decades produced greatly sustained economic expansion. History and highway were built, and the middle class emerges, and the prosperities had previously been the exclusive province. Nixon ended the gold standard in 1974. Elite began slowly and imperfectly because the dollar credibility was not just assumed, mathematically enforced the gold standard. But here's why the human natures into the equations. Discipline is easy to practice of extraordinary difficult, particularly when the consequence abandoned, slow the moving and the political benefits spending freely. By the late 1960s, the United States was financial in Vietnam War, expanding domestic social programs, simultaneously trying to maintain global military postures. The cost is staggering, and the gold reserve backing the dollars were not growing fast, and to keep the pace, the dollar being the prime covered the cost. The foreign government, France's most aggressive, begin to notice and begin to demand the math and become the impossible ignore is in August 1971. The President Nixon made a decision permanently altered tragically and every economy on earth. He closed the gold window, and the dollar would be no longer convertible to the gold. So on. So $30 per ounce is canceled overnight and signal every currency on the planet become the untethered and not anything physical. Money was no longer claimed the real asset. It's become purely simple claim on trust. Trust is competence with strength. The good faith of the government had just demonstrated would break their own rules, and the rule becomes inconvenient. What is followed was the immediately catastrophic. The motion slow and the structures dynamic has been the compounding. So is the engine driving anything happening market right now without a gold anchor? Government discovered they could spend beyond the meaning by the instructing their central bank create new money, use money to purchase government debt. The mechanic is straightforward, and the governments collect $5 trillion in taxes, but spend $7 trillion on defense settlement entitlement. Yeah, the government collect $5 trillion in tax and spend $7 trillion in defense entitlement, interest payment, and every other commitment. This is $2 trillion gap come from the somewhere, from the borrowing from the market, and all that borrowing the central bank step in, create new dollars, and buy the debt itself. The new dollar enter the economy, and the more dollar now chasing same quantity of goods, service, price. The purchasing power every dollars already existing quietly. So this inflection is not malfunctions of system. Is system working exactly must when the government removed the constraint. The one's force the living within the mean. So coolest dimension this is mechanism is so on. So who own asset, real estate, equity, commodity, gold, and value of this asset, the dollars weaken and this wealthy inflects everything else. So how fiat currency inflection. And those who hold the cash, who saving the diligence in bank account, earning the 2 or 3%, while inflation running a 4 or 5. And being cautious, and they are being slowly, systematically transferred. So they are purchased the power and quietly redistribute the asset owned and the institutions to the government itself, which inflects away the real cost of debt, the saver bear, and the loss of without ever receiving the bill, and make the transactions expire. And this system currently exists. So that is broken architecture. Treasury Secretary is now standing in front of public acknowledges, actively working over reconstruct when the government decide to restructure the global financial system. Does not do so with a single level. It's not issue the decree, pass one law, and make one announcement. It step back to watch the domino multiple from the simultaneous each initiative reinforced other. Each design shift underlying condition the global trade, capital flow, and monetary power. So deliberate direction, what is unfolding right now, is coordinates, multi-layer, and strategies. If you want to understand where your money is safe, where it's quietly at risk, you need to understand which of three primary components, which is same directly let people design possess. The first move is the deliberate weakening the US dollar. This is most counterintuitive piece of entire strategy, the most ordinary investor, because the convention's wisdom and the strong dollar sign of the American strength and prosperity, but the framing confuse financial precision and economic reality. Strong dollar make American goods expensive, global market. American manufacture uncompetitive against countries with cheaper currency, hollow an industry and a cheap job overseas, create extraordinary good in financial engineering, extraordinary making things. The current administration is explicitly target dollar depreciation, the range about 20 to 40%. It's not accident, it's side effect. It's state policy, an object and a mechanism being used to drive inspiration. 1985 Plaza, according to major economic coordinator, deliberate weekend dollars succeed. The modern version and strategies being designed by now is intended to accomplish same outcome through the combination. The three-part strategies behind the reset. The low leverages come from the being issued war reserve currency. Anyone holding the predominate cash or dollar dominate saving implications not, and the 30% of the depreciation of the dollar, 30% reduction. So it show up the loss on a brokerage statement, show up the price as mysterious, more expensive, and the standard living and the slowly cry. So sending you a notice explaining. Second move, aggressive deregulation of the banking system. Regulatory framework construct after 2008 financial crisis was built, and at least theory the premise regulars and produce collapse capital requirement. Raise leverage limit and whether it's those regulations, so on. So what's the matter for the purpose? Current strategies involve deliberate unwinding the significant portion of this framework. Rational is not exhibit. Regulations made lending more expensive and crush smaller community bank. Serve ordinary American and is the kind of financial innovation and drive economic growth. Consequence and less regulations. So not in some abstract, theoretic sense, a very concrete sense. So driving banker behavior has not changed since 2008. Career in the finance, the short bonus and tied to the short-term performance. Downside, catastrophic risk for the shareholder, deposit, and ultimate taxpayer. So, individual who took the risk, the regulation in system without addressing those, now most important, those fake money, cryptocurrency is big problem also. So, no regulator. It's terrible, you see. Those fake billionaire, those peanuts, those theater, it's terrible, you see. And the stable coin, the tokenized, bullshit, yeah, so on. So tariff are not simple tax import goods. The context broader reset. The geopolitical instrument mechanism, forcing the trading partner to negotiate, making the domestic production economic, for accelerating the return manufacture to American soil and the framework, target 3% of GDP growth, 3% fiscal deficit, 3 million additional barrel of the daily energy production, benchmark design, producing a stronger domestic economy, merely producing the inflation, So United States quietly become the world's largest oil and gas exporter. Structural shift, profound implication with economic hold, leverage in next decade's global trade. Meanwhile, BRIC nations are actively reducing their dollar dependence and the transactions local currency, building alternative payment system infrastructure to bypass dollar. The denominator system, most the buying the gold record and through their central bank institution. Also, the system better than anyone else operation. So it is not to protect you knowledge without the application merely convert. So intellectual satisfactions knowing happening why it happened to you anyway. The gap between understanding and the micro-shift navigating the successful come down, identify the specific risk. And most people have never thought the questions. And right now is particular moment monetary transition. Three risks quite destroy the financial future of ordinary investors. So believe they are being cautious, prudent, responsible. The tragedy not is people are reckless. The tragedy is they are doing exactly what they were taught. And they were taught to do was banking deregulation and the financial risk. Designed for the system no longer exist. The first risk is what can be accurately described cash trap. This is deeply embedded cultural narrative passed down through the generations. Keeping the money saving account is a responsible, conservative, safe choice. Your grandparents believe your parents probably reinforce an era in the Bretton Woods gold standard when the dollar was anchored something physical and inflections, structures, constraint. Behalf was not wrong. Saving cash in the bank was genuinely reasonable. Preserving purchase power. War ended 1971 when Nixon closed the gold window, however, returned to the color environment, so on. So persistently rate safe and then trigger alarm. Mathematics are straightforward. So on. So if cash earn 3%, inflation around 4%, 5%, you are losing. So your real purchase power is every single year compounding quietly. Investable and the statement you will ever receive. Now layer top of the deliberate policy dollar depreciation being engineered at the treasury level target weakened about the dollar by 20 or 40%. You see, 政府在抢钱，美国政府在抢 and the picture becomes significant more holding cash. The year does not cover the inflation. It's not a conservative position. It's one of most reliable, destructive. So financial decision available in any investor in the current environment is being made by millions of people who generally believe they are being carefully. And the second risk, dollar concentrations. Sophisticated, more widely misunderstood in many ways. So it's dangerous precisely because invincible people who believe they are already diversified the risk. The BRIC, gold buying, and the dollarization assumption run like if you own the U.S. stock, particularly through the S&P 500 index fund, you own the diversified portfolio spread across the hundreds of companies. The dozens of industry, the assumptions contact hidden from an S&P 500 family way toward the large-scale technology company Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet, Meta. Those companies, despite being the incorporated of the United States, generate enormous proportion and their revenue from the international market. Microsoft, roughly 40% revenue from the outside the United States. Netflix, Alphabet, all have comparable international exposure. What does it mean? Its weaker dollars, while it damages purely domestic business, does not uniformly damage this company. In fact, the international revenue translates back to the more dollars when the dollars fall. But it also means investors who believe they are purely praying the American economy is already, without the realized expression, global micro position to the stock. Those phony stock, hey, they need to revalue this phony stock yet. They are not that very important for the people's life, okay? Additional, and everybody loves because of this, you see. The investor who 100% allocate US dollar denominate asset stock bond saving account money market, but it carried a concentrations risk. The dollar itself becomes so dangerous in the period deliberate dollars devaluations. And then third risk is timing trap. One of Detroit most disciplined, most intellectuals, engaged investors, people who understand exactly the happening, paralyzed themselves trying to identify the perfect moment. Instinct and quality psychologists understandable, and the financial ladder and the monetary regime transition do not announce their turning the point. They do not ring the bell when old rules stop applying. So history is consistent on the point. In the 2008 Federal Reserve cut the interest rate aggressive and continuous. The biggest risk facing the ordinary investor is S&P 500, fell up 38%. Anyway, so do not override structures also. However, reset is never getting in the wrong moment. Risk maintain, sideline, anchor, assumptions about how the system works, no longer accurate. Without you replace every asset class according to the new asset. You didn't talk about, we talk about the theater, Venus, Ireland, Solana, Mimico, and so financial liberty, Trump, big Mimicoin, so XRP, so including those bullshit. I say framework, honest, it's robbery, you say. Ambiguous central bank institutions, the global monetary system, print the money, set the rates, understand the architect system more intimately than private investor could or buying gold. So these are not speculators. So they are voting with the reserve. They are voting with their reserve that gold is where value need to do stored to the ally coming. The people who run the system are repositioned out of system primary instrument into the gold that is not a signal, the way against other signal. So on the primary micro positions environment. The traditional sense does not produce cash flow, does not compound, it does not pay the dividend. Precisely, specifically monetary insurance and a store of the value. So maintain, especially insurance company, those policies have the insurance. Also pension fund also. However, SIVA carries similar property additional demand characteristics, making it compelling and physical real. Physical real estate was accessible, so property hedge fund against the inflections, rising the rent rate, central bank construct capital intensity. Real estate requires significant upfront commitment. Investor can access reprint, historic, reliable, so on. So the micro investment playbook explained. Manufacturing company American Energy's producer and infrastructure requires support of domestic industry expansions, positions, so on. So exporter transformation, a significant so energy's independence, not just geopolitical achievement, is economic extraordinary magnitude and the company. So final thought, prepare for monetary transition. International market as the dollar weaken, and this is international revenue translate into the more dollar create natural currency hedged embedded inside asset. Most investors already own, understand the principle. Greatest micro investor, so on. So most sophisticated risk management tool available because complexity was loose, so on. So convention allied discipline, patient through the period of structures monetary change. Only playbook has ever consistent work. Interesting. Globally, monetary reset has begun by the Stanley Druckenmiller. Okay, so what's going on with this? What signal tell us now? Interesting. Wow. The quiet financial shift nobody noticed. There's a moment in history when the rule of the money changed. Not gradually, not quietly, but at once. Most people don't notice until it's already happened. The price at the grocery store started climbing. The saving account feels strangely lighter every year, and the wealth gap, the one they always assume eventually close, seems to widen overnight. Look around someone to blame. The real answer is hiding in the plan, buried in the policy, speech most people never read. We are living in one of those moments right now. It's what the few financial commentary willing to say the plainly the people who run the global monetary system are openly recorded telling us they intend restructures, not overhaul regulation here. The weak interest rate reconstruct entirely architectures, how money flow across the planet. The U.S. national debt bellowing toward 40 trillion. Gold is hovering at the near all-time high. While foreign central banks accumulate a press seen decades, dollar shared global reserve has collapsed from the 71% under the 58%, less than the generations. The government worldwide are quietly building the payment system designed to operate without a dollar. Isn't conspiracy, it's policy. So there's playbook, because the world has done this before. Last time we said is magnitude 1944. The war emerges from the wreckages of World War II and set down a small New Hampshire hotel, redesigned the global financial order. The people who understood the new route come out meeting. The Bretton Woods Agreement went on beyond the generation where the people who why the global monetary system is changed didn't understand head-on the old assumptions, got quietly, systematically left behind. Bad luck, do the economics and how the game had changed. The same dynamic is unfolding today. And I'm going to walk through the next no theory, structures, regulars, and actually happening now. And more important is mean your money, whether you have 500 or 500,000. I'm going to explain how the monetary system and live inside actually work. Now, specific risk opportunities look like an investor willing to think clearly instead of emotionally. It's no panic here. Panic is for people who don't understand the mechanism. But the time was now, and you will understand the greater micro-investor in history build a fortune. So shift because cloud and the shift, they don't ask happen me. The moment when loud signal in the room and the one dressed in the most boring clothes. So signal should have every serious person sitting up and the languages, policy, address, delivery, and the rock economics fringes newsletter. The single most powerful financial officials in the United States government, vast majority of people who heard it, absolutely no idea, had just witnessed the U.S. Treasury Secretary. The U.S. Treasury Secretary stood before the international financial community, start with the full weight of his office behind him, the world in the middle, Bretton Woods, realignment and the war in the Bretton Woods. So that is precisely problem because those 4 words spoken by a particular person in the particular, the Treasury Secretary Bretton Woods Morin position carry a weight, and the most financial commentaries have either failed, collapsed, chosen not to explain. So Treasury Secretary was describing was not a policy adjustment. He was not talking about weakening tariff or reshaping the trade. He was signal the fundamental architecture of the global monetary system, the invincible framework determine the value of a saving, the price, everything you buy, direction, every major investment, market on earth, deliberate, intentionally designed. Understand what it means. The man whose signature appeared the U.S. dollar, the man who sit at the top of the American financial apparatus, and the man who negotiated with IMF, World Bank, and the Finance Ministry. Every signal economy and the man look at the color system said publicly need to fundamental reset. Not a patch of, not a reform, a reset. It's not just talking about, it's actively engineering conditions that happen through the dollars policy, through the trade architecture, through the banking deregulations, through the deliberate recalibrations, American role of the global financial order. Now